Okay, I think that we can start. So welcome. My name is Łukasz Ulaniuk, and I'm a part of Capgemini for the last 12 years. I hope you can hear me, but if not, just raise your hand. I have some problem. I woke up today, and it was like that. I wasn't doing anything funny yesterday. It's just probably some kind of infection, so I hope you can hear me. So I've been doing most of the time offer development work. In my previous role, I was doing service desk offer development, so intelligent service center or smart service center, so that was basically my heavy contribution. For the last 2 years, I'm developing our end-user services transformational portfolio related with a connected employee. So basically, if you remember the slide from today, from the morning, I'm looking after this area, which is also supported by the digital transformation and user experience. And this is what I'm going to talk about, focusing on the chatbot or conversational AI capability. But we also have experts, Jarek and Kasia, who is somewhere around, from the digital adoption. So if you are interested in that, they will spend some time towards the end of the session talking about the digital adoption methodology that we have. So under the connected employee, we have 3 pillars. We have cognitive solutions. So this is where we have a concrete offer related to a chatbot or voice bot, utilizing the cloud cognitive services. But also, we are capable of delivering data science projects. So this is when you have a specific problem, like we had from a retailer from Sweden, where they wanted to create a model, predictive model, that would prevent a database from running out of space so that the business application doesn't get an outage. So they had this specific problem that it happened from time to time, and they wanted to create a machine learning capability, predictive model, so that it will automatically increase the space of the database. So if you have some specific problem, we can target it with a cognitive solution, or if you are thinking about the chatbot deployment, this is what sits also under cognitive solution. Digital adoption, that set of capabilities and methodologies that are related not only to communicate the change to the users, but effectively engage them in that change. So that at the end of the day, whatever solution you're deploying, whether it's chatbot or it's upgrade to Office 365 or it's Windows 10 deployment, this makes sure that the change is adopted and that you have a quite high rate of participants who actually understand the change, they know how to take the full benefit of the change that has been introduced, and they're actually using it at the end of the day. And social and collaboration, this is a set of capabilities that has actually 2 legs. One is related with actual technical deployment of solutions like, for instance, Teams or SharePoint, for instance. But on the other hand, it's also about using these digital adoption elements and user experience elements to effectively build a community. So here we also have a platform where we can actually support any change that you're introducing, but we can utilize the methods that we can now provide to you, so that the communities are actually effectively formed up and the users are sort of aligning themselves together to embrace the change that is coming. And so I'm going to focus on cognitive, especially in the bots, and then later we are going to touch upon the digital adoption. And if you have any questions in the meantime, let me know. So just starting off with a step back, where is this whole AI, artificial intelligence, heading towards? So this is a rate Kurzweil quite famous curve that is showing exponential growth of AI capabilities. Basically, we are somewhere between an insect brain and a small mammal brain right now. But this prediction says that given the current rate and pace of change, by 2023, we will produce AI that has a capacity of human brain. What is even more interesting, by 2049, we should be able to produce AI that has a capacity of the whole human race altogether. So that's really quite fast and progressing. So where is this rate and pace coming from? These are a couple of examples. On the left-hand side, you can see example related to a Go. That's a board game, old Chinese board game. Basically, you have like a chess, and you have white and black stones. But the funny thing is that the number of possible outcomes of that game is greater than the number of atoms in the observable universe. That is more than 10 to the power of 80. So basically, it's a very complex game. And there was a guy who was developing an algorithm for 7 years, trying to beat humans in this game. And he was asking in 2014 how much more time he needs, and he said about 10 years. But just 3 years later, Google, because they applied a different approach, they managed to beat a world champion of Go with the artificial intelligence. So how they achieved that was this guy was trying to teach the AI based on the previous games that were played by humans. So he was learning by example and learning from the human interactions. This set of algorithms was playing against itself. So it was this reinforced learning. And it's quite amazing because this, another example is from this year, from 2018, when there is an online multiplayer game where you have teams of 5 people competing one with another. So this is also quite complex because you have a set of skills and you need to defeat the opponent team. So this OpenAI artificial intelligence has beaten this year the team of former professional players. So they were very good at that game. But the interesting thing is that it plays a worth of 180 human years in just 24 hours. So that's the pace in which this AI is learning. So on the one hand, you may ask yourself, okay, so we don't have a chance, right? But when you look closely, there are areas where the machines are still lagging behind. And these are just examples. For instance, for question answering or understanding and asking questions about the image, the AI is behind or far behind ourselves. This sort of orange-red line, this is the human performance, and purple is the AI performance of the last years. But there are areas like, for instance, object detection, where AI has actually surpassed our human capacity in terms of, statistically speaking, to recognize objects. And that's something that is used, for instance, in the autonomous cars, right? And that's one of the reasons why it is used, because it is at the appropriate level now. For speech recognition, so when you think about Siri or Cortana, the AI has actually reached roughly the level of humans. And that's why also you see the more and more solutions based on these capabilities. So what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, the pace is quite high. It will end up in a few years probably in a complex AI that is quite versatile. But today, there are some specific areas in which make sense to apply it, and there are some areas which probably make sense to wait a bit, like this, for instance, object detection on the images. And that's why we've built a framework that, especially in the context of end-user services, has a mix of those capabilities that in our case, and in our opinion, make sense to be applied today. Especially what also Stuart said during this session in the morning, that the computing power and the cloud capabilities, they have dramatically improved, so that also the cost of entry and the cost of using these solutions actually makes sense. So it's not only that they are good, but also they are approachable from the perspective of the cost. And this is just a simple framework showing the key capabilities that we are focusing on. So the first one is obviously speech recognition. You had validation on the previous graph Y. And this set of algorithms, they don't understand the meaning or the context of the word. It's just a set of algorithms that understand the words that we are saying. And then if you want to understand the meaning or the context, you need to apply natural language processing. So this is a set of algorithms that is designed to exactly do that, to extract the meaning from what the user, for instance, said. And then there is a set of algorithms that can extract meaning from the unstructured data. So if you imagine that you have lots of emails, or there is a lot of information in the Facebook feed, right? So there's free text information. These algorithms are specialized to extract meaning. The best example that I have is sentiment analysis. So if you wanted to understand the attitude, for instance, of your users sending emails to your support service, you could have a human being trying to read all of those emails and then making sense, or you could apply these algorithms to extract this meaning automatically. Or if you analyzed, as I said, for instance, Facebook feeds, you would be able to understand the attitude towards your brand. But the thing is that with these capabilities, you can actually achieve that at a much higher scale, because sometimes it's not possible to read 10,000 or 20,000 emails, or it's not viable. And here you can have help with the AI. And another set of capabilities is related with recognizing images or faces or reading the text from the image. So the use case for that could be, for instance, I'm the user and I'm experiencing an error. So I have an error message that is combining of letters and numbers. Instead of typing this in or saying this to the support staff, I can just upload a screenshot. The AI will read the error message and provide me with the relevant response. That could be logging a ticket for me, that could be giving me guidance how to solve the specific issue. That's just an example. So these capabilities 1 to 4, they are related with what we call cognitive thinking. So this is how the AI is trying to mimic human thinking and reasoning with these algorithms. On the other hand, you have examples of capabilities that are related more with the learning part of it. So like machine learning, but applied to a specific context. The first one is related to IoT insights and decision. If you've seen the connected office presentation, and if you heard anything about that, that's one of our offers, where, for instance, you can utilize beacons. But the beacons, the sensors, will give you some inputs, but in order to actually analyze this data, you need to have some kind of a model that is being built. But if you wanted to make decisions or automatically make decisions about, for instance, adjusting the temperature in the rooms, you need some machine learning capability to do that. And this is one of the areas where we can apply the machine learning. So that it can scale up and down based on the utilization of the office, and also based on, for instance, the temperature, to adjust to accommodate different needs. The other one is bot training, and that's related with the teaching of the bot, so machine learning for the chatbot. And what we learned is that, technologically speaking, it's not that difficult to set up this capability. It's not that challenging, let's say. But the biggest challenge is to create the proper data structure for machine learning and make sure that the machine, that the AI, actually recognizes the intents of the users and is responding appropriately. One of the main reasons for this is that we are trying to mimic here the way the humans think, and it's not 0 and 1. It's not like with the coding. So there are some gray areas. And we learned that, for instance, when we created a bot, it was able to answer 3 types of questions, but when we introduced the 4th one, because of some overlap in the algorithms and in the way the machine interprets it, the whole bot was just making no sense. So it's very difficult and challenging to actually resolve these conflicts. There are solutions to do that, but at the end of the day, that's actually the most time-consuming element. If you wanted to introduce a bot, you would spend the most time on proper training and creating these machine learning algorithms. And then the other two, so predictive modeling, I gave you an example from this database at the beginning, or classification models. We use basically either as part of this point solutions for the data science project, or as a support for the chatbot projects. Like, for instance, classification models, it will be taking the data from your ITSM system and not looking at the categorization, because typically categorization is fault because this is done by humans, right? Sometimes somebody makes a mistake, somebody doesn't really recognize the proper aspect of the issue. But with this capability, we can again look into the whole set of data and try to automatically create classification. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So that creates labels, not only assigns labels, because you could assign label and then, create labels manually and then assign them to this. But with classification models, you can also automatically detect labels. So for instance, you analyze your tickets and you think that the biggest proportion is password resets, but it may occur that users are actually asking for Outlook issues. No, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Restricted
mm-hmm.
and public.
Okay.
And we do not want to do that manually.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many
yeah, so you could do that. Yeah, so that's exactly another area where you can do that.
What is the success rate of those machines?
So that's a specific use case, and to be honest, I don't have a number from the top of my head, but what I know is that it depends on the number of the data that you have, the training data, because again, even I can share with you an interesting publication that it's not that much about the model that you are applying, because there are quite good models nowadays, but it's about the training data and the data structure that you are creating. So if you have enough training data, then probably the difference in the different model will be not that significant. So if you have enough of those documents to train the model and then to verify the output, I'm pretty sure that you can get quite good results, especially this is not such a complex thing. If you have quite comprehensive criteria, what constitutes which, then you can do it. You don't need to probably do this manually. And that's a good example of the data science project. That's exactly a very good, when you can apply any of this. And the bottom line here is that you can mix those in different combinations. You can take a bit of each of these elements to solve your specific problem. Or if you want to have a chatbot, you just take number 2 and 6 and you have a basic chatbot. If you add number 1, you have a voice bot capability. So that's basically a quite modular framework that we are talking about here. And if we go back to the yeah. Sorry, any question?
No, it's a good slide.
Cool. All right, thank you. If we talk about cognitive in general, so these were the capabilities that we believe make sense, especially in the end user context. But again, what is the value of them? Where do they add value? So basically, this is again slide from the morning. Here you have inputs. They can come from the user in the form of voice or text, could be email, could be chat conversation, It could be a document, it could be another feed from system, or it could be IoT device. And then you want to have a response in the business service. And that response could be, how do I reset my password? And I'm being displayed instructions on how to do that. Or I would like to schedule a meeting and I have a conversation with the bot, it prompts me for different questions, and then I have a meeting actually set up in Outlook. Yeah? Or it could be automated decision about adjusting this temperature. Whatever the response is, some of them can be automated already, and there are solutions like RPA, workflow automation, and so on. So the cognitive solution will not automate that part, but it can trigger the relevant automation. And then solution for this, to link the inputs and the response, it could be putting people in the middle, so that we had a client that employed 100 people. The only or main part of the job was to look at the invoice and determine the language. And depending on the language on the invoice, there will be a different process initiated. So like your example, probably there is somebody looking at the document and labeling this manually. So yes, you can do that, or you can apply this cognitive solution that will do this for you. So if it's specialized enough, and this is quite a special case that you mentioned, it will then apply, for instance, NLP in this, and then some element of a model, so that it will recognize the new document and label it properly. So it will think and then learn and then trigger the response. In this case, could be putting a label. Or maybe there is processing that is related with a specific set of documents, and then there is a response.
When you say learning, how many documents you have to learn?
So
you
no,
can get some good results.
that again depends, because for the chatbot, for instance, from Microsoft perspective, they say that giving 100 to 300 examples yields good results. We learned that this is a specific set of algorithms. They are always, I mean, they are continuously being trained. So actually we get quite good results with 30. But if you are going to create a custom model, like in your documents, there is no model existing yet. You can apply, create a model for you, but then you need to train it. So for you, it will probably require hundreds, if not thousands, of these documents. Probably if we talk with our data scientists, they say thousands. So the more data there is, the better accuracy of the model. But as I say, there are some models like with frameworks like Microsoft, Google, or Amazon. Anybody using these services, these are cloud services, is actually training one model beneath. So then it gets better and better and better, right? If you are talking about custom models, probably thousands of those documents. How many do you have? That's enough. That's a very good case, to be honest. We had a similar case from one of the companies in Scandinavia, milk producers, and they were having a grant process. So they wanted, initially they reviewed manually 300 grant applications, but now they want to scale up to like 1,500 or something, or 1,500, can't remember. But they want to scale up quite significantly. And they also think about applying cognitive to apply scoring to those applications, so that they can have the first filter, and then they can review it, the selected ones manually. So so there are different use cases, but this one is definitely a good one. So the bottom line here is that this magic box here in the middle, first of all, is not a magic box, because you need to really design those interactions, design conversation, design the way the bot is going to respond to the user. So it's actually quite a big piece of work, and we had to create new types of jobs. So when we say that automation is taking away some jobs, but it's also creating a new ones. We had to create, or actually use, the user experience manager capability. We had to create knowledge scientists who would actually design those interactions and train the machine learning model. We had to sort of rescale a bit our developers to become AI developers, because it's a slightly different application of this technology. So that's actually interesting. But the thing is, what these solutions are not doing, they are not really automating the output in the business service, because you have this workflow automation like in ServiceNow, or you can have RPA already set up. So this will not sort of duplicate this functionality. But what this is doing is automating the input handling. So it's understanding the complexity coming from here, instead of applying human brain and then triggering this automation that is on the other end. And we can create this automation if you don't have it. We have capabilities for that. But if you're talking about some systems, like off-the-shelf systems like ServiceNow, you'd probably need to configure it themselves. We can also help you with that, but that's a separate project, separate piece of work. And then if we talk about bots specifically, we created this framework to discuss with our clients, because many clients come to us and say, I want a chatbot. The other says, I want a chatbot too. But what one client means and another, it's totally different. So in order to simplify our interactions, we created this simple framework. So knowledge bot is basically a bot that you would apply to display a piece of knowledge, like to answer this how do I question, and you can have a structure of your data in questions and answers. It's quite short answer, let's say a couple of sentences and a couple of examples of questions, and then you can just fairly quickly spin up this kind of a bot. The downside is that this bot will not learn, so it's not a machine learning that you apply here, and in order to improve, you would need to run analytics and then have humans to improve the accuracy of the output. But it has benefits. It's very good if you have knowledge base or knowledge articles, this kind of question and answers. This is what it is served for. So example would be, how do I schedule a meeting in Outlook? And I have a question, I have an answer, this is the instruction, this is how you do it. And then if you wanted to actually schedule a meeting in Outlook, you would need to go and talk to the cognitive part of the bot. Because with this bot, you can have a conversation. So then it will ask you some questions. When you say, I want to schedule a meeting, it should recognize your intent, and then it should guide you through the conversation to capture from you relevant information, like with whom, when, do you need a projector, and so on. So this bot will have a conversation, but also it will learn over the time, because it will get better and better in recognizing your intent. So it actually employs more advanced NLP algorithms. And then at the end of the day, you would actually like this bot or virtual assistant to set up this meeting for you, not only gather information about the meeting, but also set it up. And this is the part of the action bot. So this is the part of the framework that talks to other systems and then passes on this information or triggers the automated workflow. And what is also interesting is that bot orchestration, it means that you imagine that you have different types of bots. One for service desk, one for HR, one for legal, maybe one for your end customers. And at the end of the day, you cannot display to your users 3 different user interfaces. You would like to have one, right? And preferably voice interface. So how to actually get about it is with the bot orchestration. Without going into many details, because I'm happy to have that conversation offline or at another time, but there are different approaches, like a product or framework approach. There are some that are better suited to orchestrate the bots. But it's tomorrow's problem, because today you will have a challenge. Which technology should I choose? Because there are lots of vendors, lots of startups, and that's a complexity for today. And once you make your choice, the other problem that you will face will be, how long time do I need to wait to teach this bot so that I get return on investment? So this is what is happening today. But tomorrow, the bots will be pre-trained already. You will have like app stores of bots. You will be just basing your decision on the cost. And there will be this other problem, will be, how do I orchestrate all those different capabilities so that I have one coherent interface? So we also have some recommendations in this area. And the other part of that framework is adoption framework. So this is what I mentioned about gamification and digital adoption. We use it for bots, we use it for any other change that we are introducing to our clients. We've actually, as I said, used it even on ourselves. Even as we speak, we are going to most likely use that as part of the Office 365 deployment to communicate to our 200,000 user base with this methodology. So we are just finalizing this initial stage of the project right now. And what it is, I think that some of you have heard about digital adoption, so I'm not going to dwell on details, but I'm going to introduce guys in a second. So here, this is a set of methods where we employ, as I said, user experience, which means, for instance, discussing and understanding the requirements and the expectations of your users so that we can design, in our case, the bot functionality the right way. We try to design for experience in the first place, not functionality, because like functionality, like logging a ticket in Outlook, okay, but you can do it in actually a couple of ways, right? It can be a ping pong of questions, it can be just asking 3 valid questions, so the experience can differ even for the same use case. So we are trying to design first of all for experience, to see how the bot could actually help for this user so that the user will like to use it. Because if it doesn't look nice, and if it's not helping me, if it's not easier than the thing that I'm doing right now, I'm not going to use it anyway. Yeah? So this user experience is the starting point. And then we design the communication campaign so that the users can get dragged into this and actually get interested. I'll give you just a brief example. If you haven't heard of it, that's the story of Alan. That's the campaign that we've run 4 or 5 years ago for our delivery centers in Eastern Europe. And the story was that Alan used to be a lumberjack. He quit his job and joined Capgemini. And at the time, we deployed a set of automation tools for our users, which were mainly service desk analysts, so quite young population. And adoption was around 3%. So At the end of the campaign, that was 6 weeks campaign, when they were engaged in this campaign and they were completing challenges, playing games, they were scoring points and getting rewards for that. At the end of 6 weeks of these interactions, the adoption boosted to around 30%. So that was immediate difference between the time we've just deployed the tools and sent the newsletter, and 6 weeks later, that was a huge boost. And that's why we recommend it. We've done this for a number of clients now. Since then, the key point is that we always tailor the communication to the client context. To that extent that when we did this for a German car manufacturer, when we were communicating the new self-help tool that they developed, we were just helping them with the communication part. We were referring in the materials like posters or screensavers only to the car model that was produced on this very plant. So that the users, they could, that would resonate to them, that they understand that, yeah, this is talking to me. It's not just to anybody, it's just to me. So we are really trying to make this personalized experience. We identify, obviously, personas, so that, again, it is reflecting, the whole communication campaign is reflecting your company spirit, let's say, this way. And at the end of the day, when we talk about this cognitive or bot solutions, this is like a 4-step approach. So we can start with sharing our experience, our view on the market. So we are not like bound to just one technology in terms of the transformation project. So we can help you make that choice, because that's, as I said, today's problem. And also identify some areas where you really want to apply it. So basically to answer the question, what do you want to achieve and what are your scoring criteria? How are you going to say that you've succeeded or not? Then we go into the assessment, so which is really a design where we combine the objective view from the data. We employ our data scientist capability to look at the data from whatever systems are in scope, to understand which are the use cases that need to be handled by the bot that we would recommend based on the actual volumetrics. But on the other hand, we would employ the user experience to, again, capture this expectation from the users. And this is done through the set of interviews, some focus groups, so that we capture, and again, design the personas and then understand the different expectations of different personas, so that we can effectively design this for experience and not just introduce a chatbot for the sake of a chatbot. And at the end of this phase, we have a clear set of scope that is defined and set of use cases, so that we know how the use cases are going to flow. Like by use case, I mean, for instance, as user story related to how do I questions. How many knowledge articles are going to be handled by the bot? What is the scope of that knowledge? And then if we are talking about, for instance, auto-fulfillment, how is the flow of the conversation going to look like? What are the integrations with other systems when the bot is going to ask which kind of questions? So this is quite detailed work, but it allows us then to scope proper deployment. And then deployment, it happens in iterations. So we typically are talking about 6 weeks cycle. At the end of this, we have 1 or 2 weeks UAT. So within 8 weeks framework, you get a minimum viable product. And 6 weeks are spread among 3 sprints. So we have 3 sprints, 2 weeks each. And at the beginning and end, like with the agile development, you have full visibility of what is happening, what's the product backlog, what is coming next, so that you can also steer this and it can now deviate. It's not set in stone. Maybe if you learn something over the last 2 weeks, you want us to move into this direction. We are fine by that, as long as we are within the boundaries of what we can produce within the time frame. So, it's an agile approach. And when you are ready for the deployment to production, this is where we would strongly advise going with the gamification to promote that. And then number 4, this is something that is interesting, because we have some clients that want us just to kick off the work, show them that it makes sense, and then transfer the skills to their organization. And we are okay to do that. We can transfer the skills. We can teach your organization how to teach the bot and how to develop that. And it's not so much a technical challenge, because if you are using a vendor product or a framework like from Microsoft or Google, they typically have already some SLA regime built for the technical functionality. It's all in the cloud. And you can, depending on the plan that you are going for, you can actually make sure that that the service is responsive. But the challenge is, again, with this maintaining the bot configuration, making sure that it's answering in a proper way, that if you want to add incremental functionality, you know how to do that. So then, as I said, we can either transfer the skills or we can do that for you, so that's really entirely up to the client. But basically, it's an end-to-end approach. We can start very early, and depending on the way or the point in the cycle that you are in, or we can jump directly into some deployment. We have clients at different phases. And that's pretty much in terms of my part. Do you have any questions now to what has been said? So in that case, I will hand over to my colleagues from digital adoption, so they will say a few words and show you some examples of what we're doing. Mm-hmm.
So I work with Jarek. I believe you've all met Jarek already, right? So I'll try to make this short. If you have any questions, ask right away. I know we're on a time schedule here. So just to jump into things, when it comes to any change, if it's a new application, if it's a new process, if it's a new product, or if it's changing the way you've been working so far, the most important thing, of course, I'm saying this because it's from my perspective, is the adoption of that change, right? We need to make sure that your end users or our end users, the population, actually is aware of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how they're supposed to function now, right? If something changes for them, they need to feel comfortable with doing this. Otherwise, they go back to their old habits or do the minimal. And we can see that with, for example, Office 365. There's many functions in Office 365 that weren't in the previous versions, and if the users don't know about them or they don't know what benefit it brings to them, they'll just continue to use the minimal that they can, right? Outlook because I have to, but they don't know what you can do in Teams, that you can schedule meetings, that you can have conversations there, share files, and so on. If they don't know how to do it, they won't risk their time and their energy and so on to try to find out on their own. We need to make it as easy for them as possible, for them to see the benefits and to quickly know how to do this. And here is where we come in and where gamification comes in and our tactics to make sure that they feel comfortable and engaged into this change. So as you can see, we have a few objectives. And this is the benefits that the digital adoption brings. I won't go point by point, but just to explain to you that, as I said, with changes, if the users don't know how to use it, no matter what it is, they will be reluctant to do so. Even if the change is beneficial to them, meaning they had the step 1, 2, 3, now they have step 1, 2, but they're not sure how to do it, they will not want to use it. We need to make sure that they feel very comfortable with this, that they think it's done for them, which usually we try to do. So it's not just a benefit in terms of costs and so on. We make them feel that this is a change that's necessary for them to be more productive, for them to have their work be easier and so on. So we engage them, we educate them, we reduce the reluctancy, and we promote ourselves as a company, right? If our workers, if our users think that this is a company that's going digital, that we're investing in their workstations, in their surrounding, how they work and so on, it makes them feel comfortable with what we're doing. And that's the whole point, that this is not something that's being forced on them, that we decided as a company that we're buying this application because we want to, that we actually thought about the end users, right? It makes it all that much easier for them to start using these solutions. And as you can see, we focus on several things. One of them is people, and actually that's the most important part. But we are quite mature in our process. We have been doing this for several years with each client, with each implementation, with the new technology that's coming in. Of course, we adjust our methods and we adjust our tools and the things that we do. But we do have a process on which we focus. And we have a portfolio of methods that we use to communicate to our end users. And as you've been told during the presentations, communication is key, of course, and a lot of our efforts are focused on the communication aspect, but that's not all that we do. We create a whole roadmap for how we are going to notify the users. Some of it, of course, is communication, some of it is email, newsletters, and so on, but that's not all that we do. We do on-site workshops, we do events, or even if we don't do them ourselves, we propose to you what needs to be done, and how we find that out is by analyzing your end user database. So Jarek will cover that in a moment. I'll do these two. So in our assessment phase, the first phase that we do is we actually come into your organization and we work with you, with stakeholders, to identify who is the end user. There are many types of personas. So first we do an exercise with you where we figure out who is our proto-persona. So the main core type of people that work in your organization, if it's field workers, if it's office workers, if it's remote workers, and how the change will impact them, meaning what pain point will it address, what benefit it will bring them, and what will change in their life. Then what we do is we actually go deeper into your organization and do a variety of workshops, interviews, surveys, sitting with your end users to see how their daily work actually looks like, what they do. So if they come in the morning and launch Outlook, or if they go for coffee first, if they sit on the phone all day long, what is their pattern and how these changes will impact them. Then, of course, we map in which area, what type of personas we have. And this is actually what a full persona looks like. So we check, and of course, these are just examples. And we create about 6 depending on the size of the organization and how much data we manage to gather and how much contextual data we have from you. So if it's HR data, previous tickets, previous surveys, where we find out how this person works. And that's important for us for several reasons. First of all, it's to properly communicate to these users. So to be able to address what the issues this person is going to face or this persona is going to face. So with a manager, for example, with Office 365, we know that, I don't know, this persona has a lot of meetings. So to make her life easier, we know that we need to tell her how Teams works and that she doesn't have to go into conference rooms every day. It can all be done via video on Teams and so on. They can share files and everybody can work on the same file without overwriting it and so on. So once we know what her work looks like, what her problems are, we can properly address our communication to that. As well as we can make our communication relatable. As you heard Łukasz say, with pictures designed to resonate with the users when it's a factory and it's a specific car model, we also do that with things like examples of issues that you're having. So if we say, you know, the chatbot can solve 80% of your questions, it's not the same message as when we know that this person, the most common tickets she logs is request for access for her employee, and we put that into our communication, it resonates. She knows that this will work for me because this is my common issue, right? Excuse me. And we do that for several personas in order to, as I said, be able to address our communication and our approach appropriately to what's going on in your organization. So once we have the personas mapped out, we also think of our journey. So the roadmap that we create, that we offer you, that we discuss with you, of course, has several steps in which we do different type of activities, or we propose different type of activities. Then we map these activities with the type of users that we have, the personas, to see how it will work on them, if it will work. And sometimes we have a standard model, of course, and depending on the personas, we might have to adjust it. So less posters, more on-site meetings, less trainings because they're tired of trainings, they keep getting trainings, more interactive content. So depending on, again, what we see is our user base, what we have as a standard, we create a model for what will work in your specific organization. And of course, this is all branded with our gamification context. There's, well, Jarek will show you how it looks like. And Jarek, off to you.
Okay, so we have our personas. As you are well aware, personas are nothing new to you since Ingrid and Philippe are doing this and they're quite proficient on this one. So this is really a solid input to us as well that we fit into our framework and focus on assessing potential gaps, if are there, in order to tailor this communication and gamification campaign to your end user base per the tool which is in scope of promotion, so either ServiceNow or O365. And once we have this assessment phase completed, So we know the organization, we know the people in the organization, we know their pains, their expectations, ways of working. HR data is somewhat relevant as well, and not only somewhat, but probably more than that. This is what we can come up with. So these are some examples. Dominic has probably recalls seeing those posters back in the day. But yeah, this is what we are capable of creating. And this guy here is in terms of this particular client, is a representation of this digital tool, which was in scope of promotion. An example of a leaflet. This may be standard tools like posters, leaflets, but for a majority of our clients, they tend to work really well as they are using this type of communication themselves, and it's working for them. So why reinvent the wheel? Why we can tap into something that actually works and is quite powerful. We've started engagement for our client based in US, where the scope of our work is to promote Office 365. So the idea of a campaign we've came up with is based on the notion of a captain that has its crew of sailors, and they are to achieve certain goals in order to stay competitive on the seas, and they are doing this by collaborating, and they are collaborating as office workers via Microsoft Teams. So this is this relevance that we are aiming at, business relevance, obviously. This is an example of the Tech Bar roadshow, where this is teasing what it's all about for end users. Branded giveaways are being distributed. The tool in scope of promotion is being shown, as well as the actual gamification is being teased in order to grasp their attention and increase the hype. Branded giveaways continued. This is the gamification platform we did for our client from automotive industry. Again, Dominic may recall this one. This is a gamification campaign that we did for a client from fashion industry, UK based. So they were striving at every gamification should have some kind of reward, some kind of a prize for end user. In order for an end user to engage in certain activity, it's best if they are motivated, incentivized in some way, in order to get going, to basically recognize this value, short-term value for them, and long term as well. So we've decided to go for charity, since this particular client had their own charity foundation. So after completing certain tasks, which goal is to raise awareness about the tool which is being implemented, a certain amount of money was being contributed to charity. And this is yet another example of a UK-based client from fashion industry where we took a slightly different approach. So actual prizes for the best competitors in gamification. This is an example of a trailer that is to grasp end users' attention, that can be presented and is presented during the roadshow, in order to raise their curiosity and make them to basically plant this seed in their head that there's something interesting going on. So again, this is this representation, personification of a tool in scope, which is fit into the office context of typical employees with their typical IT-related problems based on our assessment, based on personas, based on how they work, how they consume IT services. This is how the gamification platform looks inside. So this is a tutorial, and now how we are showing end users what to click in order to proceed, how to complete a task, what it is for them for completing a task, and we are showing the mechanics behind. So in case of this particular gamification campaign, there was no physical prize, so no iPad, no headphones, and no charity. What we did is that we went digital, so that in order to reward user for their effort of completing tasks, they could unlock certain elements of this wallpaper to customize their own wallpaper that they could later download on their laptop or PC to be constantly reminded of a fun they had, of videos they've seen, and of the value of the tool that is there for them, that was recently implemented by their great IT department that cares about their users. So this is the main view of the gamification. There are not many tasks. We do not want to overwhelm end users with plethora of tasks. We are focusing on the most important features of a tool which is being implemented. That's what we do via gamification. So we are not showing all the elements of the tool in terms of Office 365. That would be extremely difficult, if not impossible to do, to showcase each and every element of a tool such robust as Office 365 via gamification. So we are focusing on the most important aspects of this change. And of course, this is not possible without the input from our client, because our client knows best what kind of features would be best suited for their end users. This is an example of a movie that is actually embedded into gamification that shows a particular office adventure, so to say, a particular use case scenario, and what kind of value our smart hero, so our tool that is being promoted, brings. So let me just play this one for you.
Meet Tobias. Tobias is getting ready for a marketing meeting. Later today, Tobias' client is paying him a visit, and Tobias would like to show him a new app. Exactly. If Tobias wants to show his client a new app, first he has to download it and install it on his new iPhone. But Tobias can't find it. What's the matter? Where is he supposed to download the app from? Even a top specialist such as Tobias can sometimes use the help of Smart Hero. The app has been installed. Now, Tobias can show it to his client.
So our research shown that Tobias is a persona that heavily relies on mobility, on his mobile phone. He travels a lot, he uses his mobile phone a lot. That's why this particular scenario with the usage of tool which was implemented and promoted, and how it can help achieve Tobias's goals and issues related to IT. An example of a gamification task, fairly simple, to the point, raising awareness, quick quiz. So one task, 9 questions to reinforce the knowledge about the tool in scope of promotion. Again, the wallpaper customization screen with all the elements unlocked after end user completed all tasks. The button allowing end user to download the wallpaper for it to serve as this constant reminder of this engagement. And last but not least, I'd like to show you what we can do in terms of summarizing features of the tool in scope of promotion. Let me just play it real quick. So, thank you for your engagement.